There are many ways to view education. I feel that my philosophy of education is most closely related to progressivism. I am going to inform you of several different aspects of my philosophy of education. John Dewey stated, "Education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself." John Dewey is the main source of progressivism. The central concept of John Dewey's view of education was that greater emphasis should be placed on the broadening of intellect and development of problem-solving and critical thinking skills, rather than simply on memorization of lessons. My view on teaching relates most closely to John Dewey. The first aspect I'm going to talk about that I believe in my teaching is student-centered. I believe that teaching should be student-centered. I am a special education teacher, and most of the students that I have worked with do not learn well from just teacher-centered lessons. I like to make the students an active participant in all classroom lessons and activities. The second aspect of progressivism, which is part of my philosophy of education, is problem-solving skills. Abstract learning and problem-solving is a very difficult task for students with disabilities. What better way to help them than to improve their problem-solving skills by making them practice on a regular basis? My next view on education is that education changes, so teaching must change as well. I have a firm belief that since our society and education changes with time, that we as teachers must change how we teach. Many veteran teachers are stuck in their old habits and ways of teaching. They feel that since the way they did things in the past has worked, that it will work forever. I do not believe this is true. Times constantly change, so we must constantly change our teaching and keep it up to date for our students. The fourth aspect of progressivism, which is part of my philosophy of education, is learning from past experiences. I encourage my students to learn from their past experiences. When beginning a new lesson or subject area, I always ask my students questions that require them to discuss previous experiences related to that topic. I usually ask the question, and this sparks a discussion between my other students. This sets me out of guiding the lesson and teaching directly to them, and it puts them more in control of guiding the topics. I think my students learn best from their mistakes if they discuss them with one another. Other students may have had similar experiences, and hearing this will give the students ideas on what to do differently in the next time they are in that situation. The next aspect, which I feel is part of my philosophy of education, is the teacher as a guide. Dr. Allen affirms in his lecture, "Progressivists say we learn from problem solving and that we put ourselves in a context of problem solving, which is what makes the world go round. We learn how to learn." With that being said, I feel that my students can learn how to learn through their own ideas and experiences. As teachers, we can give the tools the students need to teach themselves how to learn. I act as a guide for my students. The next aspect of my philosophy of education is students making choices. I encourage students to make choices about their lives. I want my students to know that they can control their own future and they can determine what they want to achieve in their lives. While the majority of my educational philosophy is centered around progressivism, I also pull bits and pieces from other educational philosophies and tie them in to create my own philosophy. The next aspect of my philosophy of education focuses around essentialism. Within the essentialism, I like to focus on core subjects. I do feel it is important to focus on math, language arts, science, and social science. I also do my best to facilitate learning and for my students, encourage them to the instruction to be centered on them. However, there are times that I need to directly teach something to my students. I cannot solely rely on teaching from a progressivism perspective. The next aspect of my philosophy of education is back to basics. I do feel that back to basics is important. I embed a traditional curricular structure within student-centered activities. Dr. Allen states within his online lectures, "Essentialists say that a child is a learner to be shaped and developed. Essentialists say that the mind is the essential element of reality. That's called idealism. I believe that my progressivism and essentialism philosophies on teaching shape who I am and how I teach as a teacher. I tie the two theories together to create a special way for me to teach to my students.